Today I'm going to be doing my March wrap-up. Had to think about that for 1 second. So the only book that I actually read in the month of March was Milk and Honey by Rupi Kaur. I reviewed this on the channel. I will link the review below, or just go on the channel and look for it yourself. I won't go into too much detail about this, but it is a volume of poetry and I fell in love with it. I thought it was wonderfully written, so beautiful. It describes the process that she goes through after presumably breaking up with people, and also what she went through in her childhood, and it's just stunning. Like I say, go and check out the review for the pictures and things inside because they're all beautiful, and the rest are school books, so sorry for that. 3 of them were for my Viking module and 1 was for my contemporary module, so I'll start with the Vikings because that's more interesting in my opinion. First is the Poetic Edda. This is translated by Carolyn Larrington. This is my first experience of Norse literature and I fell in love with it. I'll definitely be reading more Norse. I think they're very easy reads, very accessible reads, and I just really love them. This, as the title would suggest, is more poetry, and we looked at all sorts of stuff. Mainly we looked at Sirius's prophecy, Loki's quarrel, short poem about Sigurd, we did the Lay of Fafnir, we did loads of stuff and I really loved it. I thought it was fantastic. Definitely worth checking out. I've always wanted to get into mythology and I felt a little bit out of my depth by getting into Greek mythology, but I just personally think this is really accessible. If you do want to get into myths and stuff, I feel like this would be the place to start. I then picked up Prose Edda, which is, it sounds the same but it's completely different, which apparently made sense to the Vikings and whatever. I read the entire novel, but the main text we focused on was Gylfaginning, and I loved this again. It was a really great story, very easy to read. I don't know which I prefer, the poetic or the prose, probably the poetic. Gylfaginning is actually the text that we're going to be translating in the exam, so hopefully that goes well. I'm enjoying the story, so hopefully it won't be too difficult to kind of remember what I've read, so fingers crossed. Then we read the Saga of All Soames. I enjoyed this one the most. I thought that was, it's not just because it's shortest, to be quiet, mainly because it's just one story, I think, rather than just lots of little ones. It was quite difficult to follow, I'm not going to lie. I think within the first 5 pages about 100 characters get introduced. The first page starts with a character called Siggy, and then literally by page 5 we are down his bloodline like 4 times. We're on to his like great grandson, and honestly the amount of characters that are introduced in such a short amount of time, I mean the book is so thin, it was mental trying to keep track of everybody. I had to keep going back, and I think I read it about 50 times, but I really enjoyed the actual story of the Volsungs and their whole kind of family line and what happened to them. It's really enjoyable, so easy to read, so if you kind of worry about the language then don't, because it's very easy. And I really liked this. I think you have to be definitely determined to read it, and you can't like have one eye on the telly or it's just never going to work. But I really liked it, and I'm definitely looking forward to kind of studying it more and hopefully translating it as well. The final book that I read this month was The Curious Incident of the Dog in the Night Time. I read this back when I was about 14, but I hadn't read it since, so it was nice to refresh it. The book centres around a 15-year-old protagonist called Christopher. It's never explicitly stated, but it is kind of heavily implied that he suffers from some form of autism, Asperger's kind of thing. He likes things a very certain way. He does not like his food touching, he won't eat yellow or brown stuff, doesn't like going out, and you kind of see the effect that this has on his parents, his teachers, and all the kind of people around him in his little world. What I love about this is that the author explicitly stated that this is not a story about a boy with autism, Asperger's. Not once is it mentioned. It's actually a crime novel, because the whole book kind of centres around Christopher finding the next door's dog Wellington dead in the garden, and he reads Sherlock Holmes and loads of detective fiction, so he feels like he wants to solve the case and write a detective novel about it, and it is about that, but it's also very much about his family and Christopher's personality himself. I really like books written from the point of view of a young child. This and Room and Wonder as well by Aljo Palacio is really good. What I loved about this book is that it is filled with diagrams and pictures. The chapters are in prime numbers, which kind of scared me at the start. So yeah, it's a very, very intriguing read. The next book I read was Room by Emma Donoghue. I want to say read, I didn't really read it, I kind of skimmed through it. I read it at the end of last year, so when it came up again for my uni course, I kind of skimmed it. I went to Wikipedia, I went to SparkNotes. It centres around Jack, who's 5 years old, who's trapped in a room with his mother by a man called Old Nick, and Jack has never gone out of this room. He's only experienced what is going on in the room. What I loved about this book was absolutely the child narrator. I thought that was such a fantastic way of doing it, and I feel like if the book had been told from the mum's perspective, it would have just been so dark and depressing. But because it was told through such innocent eyes, the reader twigs stuff more than Jack. It looks at the relationship between Jack and his mum and how strong that maternal bond is, and I just really, really loved it. That's all the books that I read in March, but I do have a couple here that I want to add to my TBR. The first is The Humans by Matt Haig. I started this a few weeks ago. I am 97 pages in, so I'm about halfway through. Really enjoying it, so I really hope I get to finish it in April. The other book I want to try and read, this is a very, very kind of, I don't know if I will read this, but I'm going to put it on the list anyway, kind of read. But it is The Last Runaway by Tracy Chevalier. It's set in 1850s and it's about a woman called Honor. She moves from Dorset and immigrates to America, and it's all to do with the kind of slave trade and a friendship that she strikes up with a slave. And I really, really want to get into more books like that. I've heard good things about this mainly. I'm still excited, and I actually got this on sale at WH Smith's. I was on the website buying a book for £9. It was £10 to get free delivery, so I was looking for something cheap, and this was in the sale section at £1.99, so I got it, and I'm really, really excited to read it. I think it's going to be so good. I do apologise that most of the books that I read were school books, but not anymore. That's mainly my university year's over and done with. I probably have to read one more book, and then that's it. Like I say, thank you so much for watching. Please let me know what you've read this month or what you plan to read next month in the comments below, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!